Hey everybody, welcome back to Hear Our Voices. This is your host, K-Did Davis, and thank you for coming back to see the podcast, Hear Our Voices. So, guys, by this time the job search is over. So anybody who did, put in their application, I can't wait to work with any of you guys who, if you follow us or heard about us in the past couple of months, we thank you so much for just being a part of our family and things like that. Also, guys, can you please follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and what else? We are doing stuff on Reddit too. So if you want to follow us on Reddit, you can. So I don't think we have a particular link. I think it's only my page, but right now we're doing things on there and try to get out information. I don't want you to forget, if you're a person with lived experience and would like to tell your story with family homelessness in the US, we would love to have you on the podcast to hear your story and also tell people how you got out of it and break the stereotypes of what people think of homeless people. People think a lot of things negative about homeless people, but we have a story to tell. We are stronger because we came out of it. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted you to share your story and tell people how you overcame the struggles of life. Everybody has problems in different areas in any part of their life, and you are no different, and you came out of it as a survivor of that particular, thing. So also, guys, we drop videos every week. We have a Spanish podcast and we also have an English podcast. So if you want to be on any one of those, we would love to have you. Also, if you don't want to be on video, it's fine. It's fine, fine, fine. But if you're a person who does have resources, we would love to have those resources for other people to get help. Anything for preventing homelessness, or if people are in shelter and they need services, if you would love to give us that. And also people for aftercare. But the only information we're taking and what states we're taking from is New York City, because we're based in New York. So everything we have is for New York City. But for the stories, we take stories from anywhere. So it doesn't really matter from that part. So I'm gonna get into the interview that we have today. We have a special guest. I met her at the conference. If you saw the YouTube video, I have to say YouTube reel. It wasn't a lot of content, but it was a little snippet of the conference we went to earlier this year. I met her in person, but I met her before then, in a group that we did a small little you can see a little setup we did at the conference and things like that. This is Natalie Jimenez. I hope I didn't butcher your last name. I'm really trying, guys. I promise. And she's gonna hear you're gonna hear about her journey. She's not from New York City, as you know. We do podcasts. We take people's stories from anywhere in the US, right? But I want to make you understand how no matter what state you are living in, being homeless is a trial. You have to go through it and you have to come out on the other side. And she has done that. And I don't want to get into her story. We'll make her get into her story and how she overcame homelessness with her family. So, Natalie, can you tell us a little bit about how did you become homeless?
Thank you, Khadijah. I am very appreciative that you actually want to hear my story and you think other people might be interested in it. Um, I actually became homeless um, after I was discharged from the military.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I was a single mom and I was discharged from the military in 2002. And I I ended up going back to my home state of Washington from Norfolk, Virginia, because I was stationed there. And I didn't have anywhere to live. I had tons of skills being in the military, supervising, and I couldn't find a job that paid enough to pay for housing, food, and, everything that goes with, providing for a child and yourself. So I um, hooked up with a local organization that provided transitional housing.
Right.
And with the transitional housing, it had case management, and we worked on goals. And one of my goals was to complete a degree, get a better paying job, and and secure permanent housing. And
Right.
during that transitional phase, I was able to get permanent supportive housing. which is the difference between that and permanent housing is that I would still have a case manager that would help me work on my goals, provide me resources that the community has. And so I was able to go to school. I enrolled in college, and during that period of time, I started working at a local hospital. And it was not easy because by that time, um, I guess what I did left out leave out is that I was pregnant during that time. I was homeless also. So not only did I have a child already, but I had another one on the way. And so having childcare and the trials that come with trying to find childcare, um, adequate childcare, I was relying on family members who, when I would come home, they would either, be passed out drunk after a 12-hour shift. And you're just like, how can I rely on you to watch my kids? And we're on two
Right.
different paths here. I'm trying to get somewhere, and you're like, with even though you have good intentions, you've got a problem and I can't deal
Right.
with your problem. you know and or stealing my laundry quarters, and I'm just like, come on,
No.
like, you're not helping me. So it was just like, what do I do? So not being dependable for my job, but having to be there for my kids,
Right.
put me in a predicament where I was losing employment, because
Mhm.
I couldn't hold down a job because I had to be there for my kids. For me, my number one priority is to, be present for my children. And so, I decided I would just work, work, work until I can get them to a point where they could stay home. So that was a period of like 7 or 8 years of just working like a minimum wage, lower level position, and trying to, um, I was able to obtain Section 8 housing voucher.
Mhm.
So that, subsidized my rent. But, you know, when you divvy in every single expense that you have,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with being in a neighborhood that is more affluent, because where I moved for my permanent supportive housing was kind of like, those areas where they're like, we're gonna have a couple low income housing apartments here and there
Right.
throughout the area. So, I mean, so it looks like we care for the poor. I don't know. So people can, I mean, I know that's kind of just, a jaded opinion, but it's, so that, to help in, you know, letting people live in different areas. So with that came, they didn't have free school lunch. They didn't have, they didn't have, I take that back. They didn't serve breakfast. School didn't start until like 8:30. I'm just like, I gotta be to work by 7, and it takes me about 45 minutes to drive there. You guys can't watch my kid. You can't feed him. Like, where am I gonna find a job? I'm not some executive or tech person. I can't just log in at home. And so I think that was a challenge of being in those areas, or
Right.
living in that area. But I stayed in that area, and I just worked and as much as I could, sometimes working two jobs, coming home at 8, trying to take care of the kids, doing
Right.
homework, cooking them a full meal, doing all the, domestic stuff.
Right.
Eventually, I, they got to the point where my kids were pretty self-sufficient when it came to making themselves food. And, as a single mom, you have to teach your kids to fend for themselves because,
That's true.
you know, like, you're just like, I've been through the ringer, and you need to know how to survive,
Right. Right.
like,
Just in case something happened to
yeah,
me, you need to know how to do
yeah,
it, baby. Yeah.
yeah, you have to, like, you got to be able to like thrive during survival. So for me, it was, making sure they had those tools to be able to care for themselves. And I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to finish my degree and hopefully secure, a good paying job to get us out of this apartment, because I
Right.
was super grateful to still have, subsidized housing. But, everyone wants that American dream, or at least I do.
True.
So I went through to college, back to college, and I asked them, well, like, what credits do I need to, get into a bachelor's program? And they
Right.
were, and I was like, because I was going for nursing at one point,
Oh.
and they told me, well, your science stuff expired last year.
Oh
So
no.
and I know I was like, what? And they were like, if you would have took like one more class, you could have went into the nursing program, but now
Oh
you have to
wow.
retake all your science
Yeah,
classes.
they're like that.
And
Yeah.
and I was just like, this what? Like, but does it count that I've been working in healthcare all this time? And they're like, no, absolutely not.
Wow.
So, so I was like, okay, well, where can I go? Like, what program can I get into? And they said, well, there's a Bachelor's of Applied Science program for healthcare management and leadership. Teach you the skills to be, start in management. And I thought, well, I can do that. That's fine. And I got into the program right away, and this was all through the COVID, like,
Oh.
and I was working 2 12-hour, like, two shifts, or two jobs at two different hospitals in the Seattle area, and they were each 12-hour shifts, and I think I would get like one day off a month. So it was really important that I had a position. I was a health unit coordinator. So I had a position where I had a computer in front of me so I could read and do my job at the same time. And I worked nights. And, I finally was able to finish the program and graduate. And that's kind of just how I got to where I'm at in a nutshell. During this period, I had to find an internship. And I reached out to Barbara Poppy, who um, is a national expert on homelessness. And I had met her back in 2009, and she was, she was really excited because she had a project coming up that she thought I would be, perfect for. And so I ended up on Healthy Parents, Healthy Babies. So that was an adventure of its own.
Oh, I know. Healthy Mind, Healthy Baby, or Healthy Mind, Healthy Children. I don't know if it's two different organizations. I've heard of them though. And is it with Citizens for, is it in New York based or no? It's like it's a national.
So Healthy Parents, Healthy Babies is a report. It's
Okay,
not an organization or anything. It's just a report that Barbara Poppy, myself, and Caitlin Jones co co-wrote, and it's under um, the framework on equitable homelessness response.
got it.
So, and under that, it has several different organizations like the National Alliance on Indian Homelessness, the Urban Institute, the Housing. Um, and there's several, but you can go to their website, and the report is published there. And the report was, my main role was to put together a lived experience committee of women of color, um, Black women, the majority. I wanted Black women and then women of color to basically, through telling their stories of homelessness, we put together um, a policy and practice. I can't remember the exact word because I'm, fogging out here, but policy and practice recommendations. I should know all this. I pretty much wrote it.
The best of
So
us. It's okay.
I should know all this. There's just so much in this brain. It's like
Right.
filtering it out. So there are policy and practice recommendations on homelessness and maternal health care. And so all these women, what they have in common is that at one time they were homeless and they were pregnant while experiencing homelessness. And all the women are from different age groups and different experiences within homelessness. We have women,
Right.
a woman who was in prison, a woman who's experienced generational homelessness, um, women whose children were taken away at the hospital because of homelessness, not because they were evaluated as a bad parent
Right.
or any priors or anything like that, just because that state at that time had a policy that well, they're considered unfit because they have nowhere to take their baby afterwards.
That's
So we're
crazy.
just going to take them away, and then they're going to have to, figure it out from there, get their life together,
That makes
you
things
know?
worse though. Like honestly, that I can imagine because when I was in hospital with my daughter, they got to have no place to go at the time. They told me, "Oh, I'm gonna call ACS." Can you? It's like put yourself in their shoes as a mom, you know, and you just had a baby. You already don't have a place to go, and plus this, they don't put an extra stress on you saying, "I'm gonna take your baby if you can't figure it out," but yet you should be there to help me to say where I should be going. You know, at the time, I don't know if you know about PATH, this New York City's family shelter, what like kind of is a center, and they push you out to the shelters in New York City. But they had denied me so many times, I stopped going there. If they were doing their job in the hospital properly, they should have gave me an in because social workers, that's the kind of their job to help you out, right? Not saying all social workers are not doing their job. I'm just saying a particular one who came in my room and talked to me where I'm going to bring me and my kid. Got to have like she wanted a place to send my birth certificate and stuff like that. I said I have no place to go. They should had a way to put me in the path because I'm in the hospital and I just had a baby. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's weird, but yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the recommendations in this report, in the Healthy Parents, Healthy Babies report, is that they have a 24-hour postpartum care, facility. And this should be a response and a resource. Having worked at a hospital as a health unit coordinator, we're kind of like the hub of a unit. So we know where every doctor is, where every nurse is, who all the patients are, who's left the unit, who's come back, who do they need to call for what, when, where, why.
Right.
We are the know. If you're a know-it-all, that's a good job. Good for
That's
you.
true.
And I'm a nosy person who wants to know it all. So, so tell me, and I'll keep it within myself
Right.
and let you know when you need it.
Right.
So, having that, that number for that person to be like, when a nurse comes to you and they're like, oh man, this patient, because you hear everything.
That's
This
true.
patient, in the middle of the night, someone delivers and they're like, this patient doesn't have anywhere to live. Or, when they discharge, well, maybe we should call, if we had this 24-hour postpartum care type of facility, we could call them and put them, on alert. So come time of discharge, they can, go there,
Right. I think
and
that's
they
a good
can get the
idea.
care like like their postpartum doulas, lactation, all the things that they need
Right.
to, help them out with their mental health and everything. I mean, I can't imagine having two C-sections myself.
Ooh.
I literally, right after I gave birth, the day after I gave birth is when I found out that I got transitional housing. I
Oh
was
wow.
literally homeless when I went into the hospital. And I could not
Wow.
imagine having to recover in a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I I've never been to a shelter, and from what I've heard from one of our lived experience committee members is that a story that she told me was there was a young woman who delivered, and at the time she already had a 7-year-old child, and the child was living on, sleeping on the top bunk where her and her newborn were on the bottom bunk. And I
Wow.
was just thinking to myself, that's after a C-section. You're coming home, like, who's handing you the baby?
Right.
It's probably the 7-year-old thinking, my God, I got to help mom. But she's also got to get him up and prepared for school, or him or her up for school. And then the whole time, this kid is probably thinking at school, like, I hope my mom's okay.
Right.
And I just see all the different things that could be fixed if we as a community came together and helped pregnant women, because I feel like oftentimes they are pretty invisible. You
They
think,
are.
say women have babies every day, but like, oh,
Right.
they have kids every day. Yeah, they have kids every day.
Right.
But that's not easy,
It's
going
not.
through labor. It's not easy. And I think if, honestly, if men would have to give labor, we would have a plethora of resources and
Definitely,
love.
for sure.
Anything that men go through, I feel like they always get every resource. They're like, oh man, men. But can you imagine, men get sick and they turn into man babies.
Right.
A woman gets sick and you still got to take care of the kids. You still got to do this. And even as a single
Correct.
mom, if you're a single parent, you have so much extra more pressure and duty to not only be perfect and do it right, because your kids, when you go to school, when you send them to school, they're going to be like, oh, they've got a single parent household, so then they look at your kid differently.
Right.
So they're just there's just so much with that.
It
That's my two
definitely
cents
is.
on it.
I think that single moms, it's honestly, it could be just not even single moms, just moms in general who have babies. It's a lot. It's a lot to be a mom and make sure things, and as you said, the man get to be man babies. We still have to bring the other kids to school. We got to make sure if you have a C-section, make sure the wound is okay because it can get infected. God forbid. Everybody's process of pregnancy is definitely different.
Yeah.
If you tear down there, you got to make sure you clean that out every day. You can't laugh too hard. You got to breastfeed. Is the baby's gaining enough weight? Is the baby not gaining weight? Does the baby have a temperature? It's so much different things what could be factored in to you and the baby's care. And plus, you got to take care of other people around you if you have more than one child and you still got a husband. Thank you for the husbands out there who help. I'm just saying, or boyfriends who help with people who have kids, because sometimes the men don't always help because they just don't know what to. They feel almost like disconnected because it's not really them going through it. They're just kind of
Mm.
in the background. Some men they just know how to get in there. Some men have to be taught how to do it. And the men who come in after in the second quarter, shout out to you too. I'm just saying, shout out to you because at least you didn't give up and you tried your best to help with diapers, help with late night feedings. You can't pump, but you could if the bottle is filled up in the fridge, all you gotta do is warm it up and give it to baby while mommy's sleeping. So thank you for the people who are the men and the people and family members who are doing this job because it is not easy being a pregnant mom and being by yourself. It's not easy
No,
going through
not
it by
at
yourself.
all.
It's not easy. Well, I didn't do the late nights. I don't know how that is. Apparently, people get up at night feeding their kids. I got up at night, but my daughter was sleeping. I just pop a bottle in her mouth while she's on her back, and she never cried like for months at night in general. She didn't cry that much regardless. So I was lucky in that regard. But some moms, I heard that they wake up, every hour the child's getting up, this and that. It's very hard. Like people consider their pets, as their children. It's much worse than this because you can get in trouble for not taking care of your pet, but this is a whole person, and ACS will come
Yeah,
to your
and you
door.
didn't birth it. You didn't birth it. You don't have the hormones. You're not,
Exactly.
I don't think you're as sleep deprived as, I've had a puppy. I've
Right.
trained him. He's very well trained, like
Right.
my children.
Take a couple of
So,
years to get them together. Like even after
yeah.
they're not usually
But
trained
you
after
can't
a
lock
year.
your kid in the crate overnight so that they
Right.
don't pee on themselves. You know what I mean? Like you got to change a diaper overnight. You can't let them sit in that because then
Exactly.
they'll end up with certain diaper rash and whatnot. So I
Right.
mean, it is not. It definitely.
It's
I
not the
mean,
same.
it's not the same at all. And to sit there and say that kids are like animals, I
People
mean,
always say that though, like this is my baby. I understand if you don't have children, that might really feel like it's your baby, but you haven't experienced having a child. But it's not the same thing. The stand, at this point, society might have put it kind of higher than kids in some places. I feel like they do a lot for animals. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do much for animals. I'm just saying people, little humans, are basically an extension of you, and you got to make sure they're taken care of. As she said, with the diapers. You gotta make sure they feed, especially for little ones. They pee a lot more, so they can get dehydrated faster, and they have to drink a lot. So they're usually drinking every 2 hours. That means their pampers should be changed almost every 2 hours. So it's a lot to make sure this person. And when they're so young, they get diseases faster. Like this lady, she just had a baby. I don't say 2.5 weeks ago, and I think it's called rhino disease, I believe. But because the baby is not that like old, um, it's hard for the baby to fight off this, and they don't have vaccinations yet. If you know babies after a while, they get up to 2 months, they get a lot of vaccinations in that time period. So they can get sick on a lot of just blowing in the air, and they can get sick like that. It takes a lot to keep these little humans alive. Like you didn't pop up as an adult. You had to work your way on up there. I remember chicken pox back in the day. Like these are things and steps what has to happen for you to become who you are today. So just be,
and it's not
mindful of
something
that.
that's just like like some what do you say, like I don't know, not everyone, knows so much about being, a parent or,
That's true.
keeping a little baby alive. I was lucky because I come from a big Mexican family and we're expected to, take care of all the kids, no matter what
Right.
age you are. I mean, if you can walk and talk, you can take care of a kid.
Right.
So So I don't
That's so
remember when
true.
I started like taking care of kids and cooking and cleaning and learning all of that. So for me, having a child at 19 was it was just like second nature for me. But I've seen people who are in their 40s having children late and just like cannot chew gum and walk at the same time. It's so
Right.
they're like a fish out of water. They don't
For
know
real.
what to do. They don't know what to do, and and it's hard for me to be like, how do you not know,
Yeah.
but trying to give them understand and not be hypercritical because
Right.
I think we're tough on ourselves already.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's there's a lot you have to know, you have to know about jaundice. What do you do about that?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was taught, from young, it's like, oh, you would hear them, oh, they have jaundice. You've got to put them a little bit in the sunlight so that that can go away. And I
Right.
just was like, oh, I knew that automatically at 19. Like, oh, my kid's looking a little, yellowish there. Let me go put him in the sunlight because that's what I learned,
Right.
and that's what worked. And so there's just all these small things that people don't learn. And on top of that, not many people are having children at a rate that they did back in the
That's
90s,
true.
80s and 90s when I was growing up. Because I was born in 81. And
Wow.
I mean, yeah, and I was watching kids when I was like 7.
Me too. Me
So
too.
probably earlier, I had a whole house full of kids, and I'm not gonna lie, but I don't ever remember my mom being around unless unless she was like locking us out, locking the screen door and telling us not to come back until the sun started going down. So
Exactly.
like I don't ever remember her ever being around, but she worked a lot. So that's why, my sister and I, we had to take care of siblings constantly.
Got it. Got it. Now I understand. For sure. My brother was born, but my second to last brother was born when I was 7. My father had other kids. That's why I say second to last brother. To be clear, as people are like, what is she talking about? My second to last brother, my mother had, and I was living with her. And after a certain age, she just left me in the house with him. And then she'll say, don't cook any food. But like, if we're in the house for hours at a time, we got to eat. So she would hate me going on the stove, but I would have to do it. I remember changing Pampers. Then my mother, he had a babysitter. So I used to go to the babysitter after school. And sometimes, like when I'm sick or half a days and I go there, the lady would go to a place called Jamaica Avenue. Where she was is in Laurelton, and Jamaica Avenue is like a 30-minute, 25 minutes to 30-minute bus ride, depending how you do everything. And she would leave me with it was 4 kids my brother's age, so like 2 years old, with 4 babies, 2 years old, and other kids there who are under 5. And she would leave at the time I think it was 8 or 9. Just she would just leave me like, just don't answer the door. What do you mean, miss? But now that'd be harder to do. People still probably do it, but it was I
My
honestly am happy
generation, we
that I
still
had
do
kids.
it because we're like, we survived. We
It's true.
survived. Like,
It's
you'll
true.
be
I
all
think the kids now
right.
are different though. The kids now they handle it. They break it
Well,
down
they
and
have
they
laws
finish.
now that you can't leave your kid past a certain age. But
That's
get
true.
this, I think Washington State doesn't have that law.
Really?
Yeah, because I was, like I'm not gonna lie, I was so desperate, like counting on family members who were just not right.
Right.
I mean, bless their hearts because they had the best of intentions,
Right.
and they're really good people. They just got they've got some
Stuff
vices
going on.
that I
Right.
prefer not to have around my children, or if you're
Right.
gonna like, do it on your own time, not on my time, like, you
Exactly.
know. I mean, I don't hate anyone with whatever they got going on.
Right.
Just like, when we have an agreement, you need to uphold that agreement.
That's definitely true. Be a
So,
person of your word.
so
But yeah.
yeah. So like, at a certain point, I was just like, well, at what age can, I leave my oldest, who's like almost a 6-year age difference
Right.
with my youngest.
Right.
And they were like, well, we prefer that you don't do it. And I was just like, at some point when he was like 9, I thought to myself, well, you know what? Like, I really feel like he has the wherewithal. Like, I was
No,
like,
did
he's
you
my
feel
kid. He
it
can't be a moron.
sometimes? Did you feel it or you wanted to feel it? Because it could be a difference. You could feel it because you need to get the stuff done, or he really was responsible. Which one was
No,
it?
he really was responsible
Okay,
because
that's
I
good.
just like, I mean, it was just like, I'm just going to work. So
Right,
it was more like, your brother's in kindergarten, like, like we'll have the neighbor pick him up, but y'all go to the house and I want you to
right,
stay there. Don't let no one in.
right,
Because in a way, I wanted, like, I felt like that was safer,
right.
and letting the neighbor watch them for forever.
That's
Because,
true.
like, I'm just like, yes, I like the neighbor, she's a great person, but I don't know who she has in her house.
That's the thing too. Oh my
And
gosh.
like, coming from like trauma
Right.
and things like that, I'm just like, I think when you survive sexual abuse as a child,
Yeah.
your biggest fear is
It happened to your
something like that
kids.
happening to your kid. And you're just
Yes.
like, I have to protect you at all costs.
That's so
And
true.
so in a lot of ways, you project all your fears onto your kids. And
For
so it
sure.
makes them, I feel like now my kids just don't, they're just like, man, we feel like you got ulterior motives. Like,
Right.
because I'm always like that. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, when people invite me to their house so early and things like that, I'm just like, I don't know you.
Right.
Like, that's weird.
Even the
And,
people you know, you be surprised because people act one way in front of your face, but when you're not there,
yeah.
they act differently. And I think that's what
Yeah.
like, it's so crazy. I never put this out publicly, but when I was a kid, my mom used to leave me at this lady's house. Well, it's my god sister, and her family. Her family was excellent. I could say they're excellent people. Her father died, and I call him my dad. Excellent people. The problem is that the people they had around them weren't excellent people. So they might have been
Right.
excellent, and you might have your kids in good hands, but the people who their friends they bring over might be the problem. The person themselves might be a great, excellent. They take care of it. They used to make sure my showers together. Never did nothing bad to me. Took care of me. Christmas. I used to be doing Christmas and Thanksgiving at their house. I'd be in their room sleeping. I used to sleep over all the time and my mother had to go to work. And my mother knew these people from like Jamaica. My family, if you don't know, is Jamaican. And the people they brought around me did stuff to me. So it's like they were
Oh.
wonderful. The lady had it was a man and a wife, and he had 3 kids, 1 girl and 2 boys. And the boys would never, they're like big brothers to me. They would have never done anything harmful to me. Their friends were the problem. And
Yeah.
that's the thing people don't think about. Like you might have the bestest person around you. You have to ask that person, are you bringing people around my kids? Or like if you know this person is a person who like to bring people around them in general, maybe ask that person going to be not maybe not no like mean, but say, can you please when my kids are there, don't bring nobody else around the house. Like just to be cautious. Like you said earlier, um, you end up because stuff happened to you as a younger child, you are
Mhm.
extra precautious on 1,000 because you don't want the same thing and you know how that could carry on to an adulthood and could affect other
Mhm.
parts in your life. People don't think that stuff they do to children can affect them as in the 20, 30, 40-year-old. It does. You are shaped by the things that happen to you as a child. That's why it's always good to have certain things happen to kids at a certain age, like 5 and below is really developmental age, even when they get older, because the things what happen to them as kids shape what they do in adulthood. So I'm great that came up because I'm like, just be careful, guys. I'm just saying, put it out there. I know you
Yeah.
want to work.
I mean, it's so hard.
It
It's
is.
so hard, there's a I feel like you're at your most vulnerable when you're homeless, when you're a single mother,
Right.
because you want so desperately to be a part of the community,
Right.
to have a community, to feel supported. But still, in the back of your mind, you're alone. You're like, okay, yes, I'm happy that you want to help me, but I don't know if I can trust that person. Like, I don't, I'd rather, sometimes it's like, I'd rather, figure it out myself or suffer for this amount of time until, until I can let my kids be by themselves so that I can, work and know that they're safe at home. And I think that's how that's where I came from with letting the kids stay at home so that I, after school so that I can, work. So, I don't I don't regret my choices, but I do feel like it made them in a way kind of grow up faster.
Right.
So, but you know what? I'm not here for mom guilt. So
Definitely
that's
not. You're an
fine.
awesome mom.
So I'm not
You
gonna
did.
I'm not gonna feel guilty about that at all because they seem to be good kids. They're
That's
they're
good.
very caring, kind, and you know what? They got to have a childhood that I wish I had.
Right.
So which to me is more important than them having to suffer a couple of hours with some Lunchables and
Right.
Uncrustables.
Some kids out there
If
getting
that's
nothing.
your biggest problem, then
Right.
I don't feel sorry for you.
Right. For sure. You're a great mom. It sounded like you was good. You really wanted the best for your kids. You wanted to keep them out of harm's way. You fed them. You put a house over there. Like you did your part. I'm not trying to compare, but some people don't got nothing. So if you did that
Yeah,
and that's just the minimum, and I know you did more than that, you're excellent. I'm just saying, you're excellent.
thank you. I don't think anyone's ever told me that, so I'll keep that.
I'm just I don't like to compare, but I do it a lot, and sometimes I think I do it in the negative way, and I need to work on that. But I I'm a person who likes to be grateful for everything that you have. At one point, I had cataract in my eyes, so I couldn't see nothing, and now I could I don't see 20/20, but I could see. So I try to be grateful. At one point, I couldn't see, and now I can see. I might not do as much as
Yep,
everybody else and as fast as everybody else, but I want to be so grateful because it could be so much worse. Like I was homeless, but I wasn't living on the street. I was like I didn't always have toilet paper, but if I needed something, I had to go to McDonald's to get some paper. Like I try to be grateful because it could be worse that I couldn't walk. And with the
yeah.
I was born with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which affects your joints, and some people
Oh
end up in
yeah,
wheelchairs. I'm happy
yeah,
that I'm grateful to walk. I'm grateful. I'm happy. I'm grateful to see. And you can't always dwell in the past about things. You just have to kind of honestly, I suffered with depression before and anxiety, and depression goes here and there, especially around the holidays. It's hard for me, but I try to make sure I put myself in and pray to God and put myself by the bootstraps. Like you have to make it, especially when I have a daughter. I think it's so much easier to get better for me because I have my kid. Before, without my kid, I was like, I was still in the depression just a little bit longer. But my kid, I want her to see the best and know that mommy can make it. And I want her to be the woman a better woman than I ever can, right? So, and I think on it personally, I think better than my personal mom. In my mind, I raised myself. So, I want my daughter to be a better mom and a better person than I am. And I feel like so far she's kinder than I am. I don't know, like I feel like I'm kind, but she's as a child compared to me as her and a child, she's a kinder person than I am. Um, it might hurt her a little
having
bit
met her and you, I would say that's true. No,
but I think
she she's a little spitfire. I
she
really love
is.
her.
She gives you attitude, but she even just sharing. But like she was basically the only child until I got my foster daughter. So sharing, she's much. When I was a kid, I was not sharing with people. My mother had to get me and my brother separate things. That I was not about that sharing life. And it's like
Oh,
I'm blessed that she came out that way, and she's already a better person than I am, a smarter. Compared to bookwork, she's smarter and better than me in schoolwork. I think she's gonna be amazing in the future. Not because she's my daughter, but what the stuff I actually see her do and how she is in school. And I
yeah.
make sure I take her education very seriously. I know this is not the topic, guys, but I'm just saying, I think even when I'm in the trials of everything and being homeless and these things happening to me, I try to make sure not to stay in the problems too long and try to think about what's the next step to get this thing better. With my eyes, I took the first surgery for one eye, 1 year when I was 13, the other one by 17. They didn't want to do them right away because you have to get your eyes stable to a certain degree before they even go in your eye because the inflammation can be so much after surgery. And my condition that I have gives you a lot of inflammation, so they want to make sure it's stable before they go in. So
Hmm.
I just try to think about what's the next step, what to do, what medication I got to take for this and that, and that's I'm giving you a lot in this podcast. I'm saying I give you about my life, my trauma. I'm giving, but you know what? I
I
am
mean,
blessed.
that's what I do. I've always been told that like people really can like let their guards down with me. And I think that's me. I'm always the kind of person, I'm like, well, if you got something to say, just sit next to me because I'll listen. I'll
Right,
ask the right questions. I'll pull it out. I'll make you feel so comfortable so that I can
right.
get the whole, getting like the whole story.
But you're such a nice person. Like I met you and you're so cool. You're just so down to earth, like we don't come from the
Oh,
same walks
yeah.
of life or even the parts of the country, but it's still good that we can come together and still talk about stuff and really relate. I think that's what it is. You're very relatable. You're a very nice person. I think that's what it is. That's the key.
Well, I found with being genuine and being real, I mean,
Right,
you have to be like, there's so many times, having been homeless, I used to feel like ashamed to say that. And
right,
not till recently, I've actually been able to say that. People that I've worked with prior have
right.
known me for such a long time, but I have never invited them to my apartment. I've never,
Mm,
like, I just was very a private person,
right,
because I didn't want them to think that, less of me or feel bad for me, or anything like that. So I never really told people, that I was homeless at one time or
right,
anything like that. In fact, I'm not one to tell people like my childhood story or anything that I've ever really dealt with,
right,
because I just don't I don't like feeling vulnerable. I think
right,
that's what it is. It's really hard for me to feel to just really say, um, you know, I'm struggling, I need help or
right,
stuff like that. Just recently, and here's the thing with having, being homeless, there's probably a population of homeless who have never suffered any real like traumas in their past. And
right,
so, so they, the only trauma they've had is, being homeless and what comes with that, right?
right,
But you're talking to someone who has probably experienced, several different areas of trauma.
right,
Um, you know, had I gone out of the military, um, and had a home to go to, I would
right,
have been fine. But when I
right.
was 16, my father and uncle were murdered in the home that I grew up in.
Oh wow. This came to a
And
twist.
my father raised me. So
Right.
there was that extra, like, I had no
Layer.
home to go to.
Right,
So I think, um, that trauma
right,
really, kind of amplified my homelessness because it really settled in that I have nowhere to really go.
right,
And I think that hopelessness really took me to a place where I thought, I'm not going to make it. Like, this is the time that, fortunately, I didn't go down the path of drugs.
right,
But I thought to myself, like, is this is the time? Do I just give up and start doing that?
right,
Like, is this the point where you start, doing the drugs? Like, what, or is it how does it have to be something you
right.
does your brain have to be wired for it? Like, it had me thinking, like, what are my avenues here, my outlets?
So
And I
true.
think for me it's just kind of like just putting those jokes out there in my own mind. I'm just like laughing at myself. I'm like, what is wrong with you, Natalie? Like why do you think you're being funny? This is a serious situation.
Right,
You're about to have a baby. You don't have nowhere to go, dummy.
right.
I'm just like, and in my head, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should be a crackhead. Like, why not? I've got all sorts of other, like, I can justify it with like everything that I've been
That's
through.
so true though. That is so true. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna put something else out there.
I mean,
I
that's the only
honestly,
thing I haven't done. And I'm
I'm
like,
just,
maybe I should do it to do it. I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was thinking maybe like when I got to my lowest, and I feel like I had not enough money. I thought stripper would be the best concept to do because you make a lot of money. You don't have to really have sex with people like that. Well, some people do, some people don't, depending. But you make money and there's no
I don't
drugs
knock
involved. Like
anybody's
people, some
hustle.
people do. But I didn't know what to do. I understand what you mean. Like, what else can I turn to to help me in this situation? And it's always the
Yeah,
worst things come to your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what is my coping mechanism? For me, I think it's, for me, it's making a joke out of something, like trying to
Right.
find the comedy in life, right?
That's true.
Not till not till recently I was like, God, there's so much. This summer has not been happy with me.
Oh,
Like this week, actually, past week, last week, I was at a court hearing, evidentiary hearing on one of the men who participated in the murder of my father.
right.
There's a new law in California, and so he is trying to get his sentence reduced. So that has been super
Oh,
traumatic
has
with
he?
me. So like, I'm like, how am I coping with this?
Right.
Like, how do I cope with this? I'm losing my mind. I'm breaking down. I'm crying. Like just this morning, I'm in the shower and I'm crying and I'm like, okay, Natalie, I'm going to give you these 5 minutes to cry
Right.
and feel bad because, you need to, like, obviously you need to let those emotions out.
Exactly.
But after this, you've got to really, stay focused on what you have going on, and I think keeping things on your schedule, no matter
Yeah.
what it is. If you're like, from this time to this time, I'm gonna take a walk. Like, quite
Being
honestly, let me
busy.
tell you, yeah, staying busy. 20-year-old Natalie, like, if my case manager was telling me this, I'd be like, okay, crazy hippie white lady, like,
Right.
like, okay, I'm gonna go take a walk. Like, I don't know these streets like that.
Right.
But you want me to go walk in the park? Like, I'm watching the news. People are getting, kidnapped in the park. I'm like, what if I'm
Right.
not home for my
Murdered.
kid? Yeah, I'm like, I can't come out these doors. Like, you find me things to do inside the house. And she's like, well, you can do yoga, you can do this. And I'm like, I
No.
mean, I'm not the yoga kind of girl. Like, I didn't grow up
Right.
like that, right? You want me to do all these things that are good for you, but
Right.
what is good for me? But you can't tell me what's good for me because I don't even know who I am.
Right.
So, it just took all these years, and now in my 40s, I'm like, I literally took my sister to Costco. I said, because Costco really, really keeps you focused. Because you're in there looking at all sorts of stuff, and you could just, window shop so well.
Right.
And I bought her a shower head that,
Oh
like,
man.
it's a magnetizing one that comes down. And she called me, I think it was like Saturday or Sunday, and she's like having this panic attack because she's like, I have to work on the weekends. She has two jobs. So
Right.
she's like, I gotta work and I can't even get out the door. And she's having a panic attack, and I'm trying to talk her down. And then in that, I was like, how's that shower head? And
Oh.
she's just like, oh my gosh, I never thought a shower head would make me so, so
It
happy.
does.
Because, having been there for 3 days and using her shower, I was like, if I can't take it down and rinse like the hair off my legs or something,
Right.
I'm not enjoying this. Like, and the shower is one place where I feel like I get away. That's
Yes.
my spot.
Right. Definitely.
So, yeah, it's, I think finding like the comedy during, like, for me, was my coping mechanism. Now I can get really sarcastic and things with comedy, but um, I think that's the only thing, that and my children, that sustained me during those times, like where I was like, I'm never gonna get placed. I'm never gonna have, a roof over our head.
Right.
This is gonna be tragic. Like, how did and I was like telling myself, like, how did you get yourself to this place? Like, how is, this should, I served my country, or honestly, I was like, it shouldn't be so difficult to get housing.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that was like like maybe 13 years ago. And still, the problem is, I feel like, is much more amplified when people are like, no, we're on waiting list. We can't do this. And I'm thinking, why? Why, with a country that's full of money, why?
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't get it. I don't get it. That's so hard. And it's just the whole rigmarole of, where the money goes here, the money goes there, we're going to put this money here. And it's just like, you know, there's so many hands in the pot.
For sure.
So I mean, what do? You gotta survive.
That's true. That's definitely true. It's it's just so weird to me that they discharged you and they didn't have like they didn't put something set aside or give you a way that, especially if they know. I feel like if you get discharged, you should know certain things about people before you let them out. It almost reminds me of jail, how they just give you probably just a little bit of money and say bye. People pick you up, is okay. If people don't pick you up, is okay, and they don't care what happens to you after that. I don't think that's right, especially after you said you serve your country, you did your part, you did your job. Yes, you get paid for it, but your life is also on the line. Like at the end of the day, Um, so I feel like they should have had some options for you, and I don't think shelter or anything like should have been. It should have been like they have
Mm,
certain landlords they're connected with or government properties they can put people in until they're able to get back on their feet to go back in society. And I think that's a disconnect right there. They want to use you when they can use
mm,
you. I try to speak bad about the government. I'm just saying they should take care of the people after they leave. And
yeah.
you're a single mom, and you had a baby, and like
I
it's
mean,
confusing to me.
it was difficult. I'll tell you, the military was the best thing that I ever went and did. It gave me purpose. I was really proud in what I did,
Right,
and being able to serve this country has probably been one of my greatest achievements. I was discharged on custody of minor child, so I wasn't discharged because of anything. I didn't do anything bad or
you know what?
anything like that.
Yeah, I
It's because
understand.
I couldn't sign a parenting plan for my kid to be placed somewhere. I
Right,
couldn't, like, because I didn't know who would be able to help me, like, take care of my kid for 6 months while I'm on deployment.
right,
And so I didn't, I think what I didn't expect is for, at the time, the my ship's command to just kind of like discard me. And it wasn't in
mm,
the best way. It's more like
right,
I got pulled into what they call the chief mess. So and they were like, all the chiefs were there and they're just like, you're a horrible parent, you can't do this, you can't do that. They completely berated me, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna process you out since you can't, it's because I couldn't, like, why did you join the military if you were gonna have a kid and not be able to go on deployment? What do you think the Navy is? And I'm just like, I don't know, like, why can't you guys like help me out?
right,
Why can't you be like, we have an organization that helps single mothers or single
right,
parents while they're, a trusted, organization that helps raise your children, for 6 months while you're on deployment.
right,
Like, that wasn't even offered to me if that was there at the time. It was
right.
just kind of like, well, if you can't sign the parenting plan, you're not able to do it, then you need to get out. You need to get out because we don't need you.
Oh,
Well, guess what? My only plan, my whole career, is since I was 14, was to serve the Navy, go into the Navy, and stay there until I retired.
wow.
That was my only plan. That was like my only plan. My uncle, I have like a very, cherished uncle. His name is Terry,
Right,
and he was in the Navy. He retired, and he was just such a wonderful role model. After my father passed, and he took me in, and he was just an amazing, father, just a man that I could look up to. And I thought, if I could be half as good as him, then I'd be golden. And I want to follow in his footsteps. So yeah, that was my only plan. And so I had no other plan. And
I
so when I got
understand.
out, I was like, I ain't got nothing. Like, I don't know what to do now. Because
I
I
understand.
never thought about anything else. I never thought like that I would fail at that. So,
Right,
yeah.
but you
But you
made
know
it.
what? All
You
the
made
trials brought me to here where I am now.
right.
I am looking for a job, though. Any leads would be great.
If you hear, if you anybody has a job for Natalie, she's looking for a job.
I'm
What state
looking
you
for a
living again
job.
in, Natalie? What state do you live
I
in?
live in Washington State.
Washington State. You heard. So if you have somebody who wants, if you need somebody who's a hard worker in Washington State, even she might take remote.
I
So if
don't
you,
know. I don't know about hard working, but if you need, no, I'll do whatever's on the job description.
Yeah,
Just
right, right. You got to pay her for the stuff that she's actually doing, not
yeah,
put in extra. What she's not getting paid for. I'm
exactly.
just putting it out there 'cause a lot of people like to do that. Give you the description and say ain't at the bottom in fine print. If we ask you to do anything else, basically,
Yeah,
you
like
can do
other
that.
duties. I'm just like, what
She's
are
doing
these
several
other
people's jobs.
duties?
You only got one job. Crazy. We're not looking for that
Yeah.
here. I'm sorry. No. She told
Yeah,
me
it's kind of
she
hard
did.
when you want to just work from home and you don't
That's true.
like, yeah, no, I'd rather be remote.
Right.
I don't
I
want
love
the nine
remote.
to five,
I go to the
just all
gym. I
those
be remote.
things. I think
Right.
now now I'm at the age I'm like, okay, so I have my bachelor's degree and
Right.
I've helped create this report. So what's next for me?
Right.
I don't know. We'll see.
You're gonna get some stuff, Natalie. I can see it. Well, I can't really see it,
Oh
but I
yeah.
feel it. I feel it. I feel it. You're gonna be doing great
Just
stuff.
send me an email, jimenez.natalie1981 @gmail.com.
Right. You heard. You heard that. We can link it down below because I have her email. You'll need
Yeah,
you
sounds
need her.
good. And if you want a link to the report, I would love to send that out. The more
Yes.
people read it, I mean, it's such an amazing report. And since we're not on here to talk about the report,
Right.
and I don't have my two other colleagues with me who helped with the report,
Got it.
if you want a link to the report, if you're interested in it, we do have a webinar coming out on the 21st. So just let me know and I can send you that information.
Send it to me by text, and I could link it into the podcast description down below, so they'll be able to
Sounds
see it.
good.
Yes. So you guys also on YouTube, if you're when you're watching me there, it will be past the time by the time you see this video, but we can still give you the link so you can see the information she's talking about. But yes, I have a question. Like, um, you said your oldest son was with you, like when you was in, going through the whole ordeal. Did you think anything affected him as he got older, or do you think that like he was fine whether it happened or not happened? And how did you get through a lot of problems and tribulations with that?
Oh man. Well, I don't think so. I don't think so because I think I feel like on my part I was very much in tune with my son's needs, like what he was going through, things like that. I think, for me, it's hard to gauge because, like I said, I've been through so many trials throughout
Right.
life. He was actually hit by a truck when he was
Oh my
16.
God, Natalie, tell me see a
I
lot of
know,
stuff here.
right? Like,
Oh my God.
who are you,
Also,
Natalie? What the hell's wrong
also,
with
I'm
you?
sorry about your dad and uncle. I didn't say that before. I didn't know where to put it in. I'll put it right there. But
I
you're
mean,
telling me a lot of things. It's like thing after thing after thing. This is a person who went through it all. So you went
yeah.
through it all. Continue, Natalie. I'm so sorry. Oh my
I
gosh.
know, right? I don't even know how I went through it, but he was hit by a truck when he was walking, ironically, to his driver's ed class.
Wow.
It was like his last week of driver's ed, and I got it close enough so he can just walk there.
Yeah.
And he was hit by a truck, and so for almost a year he couldn't walk. He had to do physical therapy for like 2 years. I mean, so now he's almost 23, and there was so much fallout from the accident. Depression. Like just an array of mental health, and just like self harm, just things that I was just not prepared for.
Right.
But having worked in the like in the medical field,
Right.
knowing what resources he needed. So I think, I am grateful that he is the amazing man that he is now. I
Hmm.
mean, he is such a sweet and beautiful soul. And like I tell him, whatever you think is like, everyone defines success in so many different ways.
True.
So, just because you're not 23, with a master's degree, like making, a whole bunch of money, there's so much value in your life
Right.
that that you have the success by you have me, you have your brother, you have a roof over your head. Like these are all, successes, and they're not small successes. These are pretty big
Right.
successes. So you have to like reframe the way you define success. Like um, I don't like he suffers from really, bad migraines and things like that. So keeping a full-time job isn't easy for him.
Right.
So I tell him, you want to feel like you're fulfilled at something, volunteer.
Right.
Like I got you. You don't have to pay for room and board, like or anything like that,
Right.
but go out there and volunteer and be a part of the community. And so
True.
he does that and he finds great joy in it.
Mhm.
And I love that for him, because
Me too.
that makes me happy. And he has so many cool things to talk about. And I mean, he's so intelligent. And it's just like talking to him is like, so I'm like, I was never cool like that.
Aw.
I was definitely not that smart, and my vocabulary was never that extensive. And
Right.
I always like felt my intellectually that I was below a lot of people because you know, I'm like, I'm a hood girl. Like I like I mean, I don't really know much.
Right.
and and I know street stuff, but
Right.
like I'll teach you how to do a lot of things that might get you in prison, but like, I mean, I'm well versed in that, but to have like, I never watched Star Wars growing up or anything like that.
Really?
Like, I'm like, what the hell is that stuff? And I was like thinking, I'm like thinking that's some nerd stuff. Like, I'm like, God, my kid is a nerd. I'm like, I was talking to his father one day, and I was like, dude, like, he's like, man, when I was his age, I was slanging and banging, and
Oh man.
I was like, seriously, like, I think I was like drinking and partying. Like, I didn't know.
Wow.
I'm like, this kid is so cool. But but he's doing nerd stuff.
Right.
Like growing up, we were like, that's some nerd stuff. But I was like, whoever thought that nerd stuff would be so cool? I
Right.
mean, I can watch the movies, but I have to do things in portions because I don't
I
because I
understand.
don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm like, is there something more I'm supposed to be understanding? Like, so, I mean, these kids nowadays are so smart
They
and
are.
they don't just stay in one lane. Like growing
They
up, you had
don't.
to be, if you're this person, you have to follow this path. If you're this
Right.
person, you have to follow. So they just go and they just do what they like and learn
Yeah.
about what they like. And it's just, I'm just like, man, these young women and men, they are really doing their thing,
They are.
which I love to see. Then they don't care what other
Right.
people think.
They don't care. They could care
They
less.
don't. They're like, yes, I'm a nerd, or I like to code, or you're just like, what is that? What are you coding? Are you trying to break into something? I
Right.
don't know.
Brother, my daughter loves coding too. It's so weird. I'm like, coding. What? She loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. And I had to learn how to encourage that kind of stuff because I'm like thinking, oh, my kid's gonna be soft. Like people are just gonna run
Yes.
all over him. But I'm like, I think my aunt told me, she's like, you live in the suburbs. Your kids don't have to be hard.
That's
Like,
true.
the world is changing, and what they're learning now is preparing them for the future.
Right.
So. Yeah, as a parent, you don't have a book on life. I mean, as a person in general, you really don't have a book on life.
Right.
I didn't have I I'd like to say I didn't have guidance, but I didn't listen to all my guidance.
I know what you
So
mean.
so it's like, probably there was probably some people here and there who like really, cared and gave me good advice. But I'm
Right.
like, what do they know? They're not me. They're not going through what I'm going through.
Right.
So yeah, I think with parenting kids and just constantly, I didn't want to overindulge my kids and be like, oh, because I didn't have this or I didn't have that. But yeah, they just turned out to be pretty cool people.
That's
I
good.
mean, in their own ways. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're perfect and they don't work my nerves. And I'm like, can you go away? but but overall, I mean, I had to learn like, this is life. We go through trials, um, and it's not a failure. It's just part of what life is.
Right.
And it took me a long time to realize that. Like I used to be like, oh man, like what in the hell is going on with my life? Like how did this happen? But
Right.
now I'm just like, man, it is what it is. I can't do nothing. Like the only thing I can control, I can't control life, but I can control how I react to the
True.
events that I go through as you go through life. So there's that.
That's so true. You
I don't
definitely
even remember
cannot
your
control
question.
life. What you said?
So I don't remember your question, but I feel like I went on a tangent.
It's fine. It's fine. I know people I think is gonna love it in general. You're a great speaker, and it's like I'm so happy that you shared your story. It was a lot of twists and turns. I didn't think it would come out to be this way, this podcast
I
whatsoever.
truly
I'm not
didn't
gonna
think
lie
I
to
would
you.
even, I thought I was going to be so much reserved or whatever. But I feel like you and we have this chemistry with talking and
Yeah,
like just keeping it real that
right.
it just, for me, I felt like this is a safe space. And I'm not even thinking about like how many people are going to watch this, but, but I'm just like, okay, me and her, we're having a conversation and I'm just telling her like more about me. That's all it
Right.
is. Like, but there's people who've known me for years who would never even get this out of me.
Oh wow.
So you've got it. Yeah,
I
you
got
heard
it.
it here first.
Right. You guys got it. You heard it here first. Don't tell
Right here.
nobody.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Natalie, do you have any words for like parents or just people in general who are homeless that you like to give a word to of encouragement for themselves?
Um, it's life, it's just an obstacle you have to go through, but you know, it is what you make of it. So you can, stay in your sadness and woe is me, or you can really build a community around yourself that keep the a safe space. And in every situation, you will find people who are willing to lift you up, hold you
Right.
accountable, and others that you can depend on that can get you through this. And don't be ashamed because you know everybody has a story. Like
True.
I look like I work in a library, so and my story's wild and it's still going. Like I
Right.
could tell you a whole bunch more that you'd be like, what?
Right.
So, we all got a story and we're not, you might see someone put together, but they could be the biggest mess that you've probably ever came across.
That is
So,
so true. Sometimes the most put together people are the most people who are going through the most problems. Like a lot of actors, what's the guy who played I forgot, he dressed up like a lady. Is it Robin Gibbons? I think his name is. I don't want to
Robin
say
Williams.
Williams. And he's a person, he's a funny guy. He was a great actor, but he's all that roles that I remember seeing him in is always something that's funny. The people who are usually giving out the most laughs, I'm not saying that we're doing this right now. I'm just saying a lot of actors who are making other people happy because I went to school for theater arts if you didn't know, if you're first time watching this. So I love having people laugh, cry, just entertaining people in general. So the people who are usually giving out the most laughs and you think, and by looking at them you think they're just they're okay, but it's something on the inside is making them sad and depressed, and they're going through all these problems. So um don't think, oh, because you see how a person's smiling or things like that something's not wrong with them. Even if you have time, check on the person you think is the strongest, and
Yeah.
they might have a lot of things going on and they need a lot of help, and they just don't have nobody to turn to. They don't know who to go to because they feel so alone. So just be aware of that situation.
Well, smiling is free. So
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
one thing you can give to yourself. Like, smiling is free. And my grandfather used to always say, you know, uh, your smile is worth $1,000,000.
Mm,
So there's a
that's
lot of people
true.
that owe me. I'm just saying.
That's true.
There's a lot of people who owe me. I'm a billionaire right now.
I wish I was. Mm.
Because I smile at people all the time, and I've heard it from patients and people like that. And it's people are attracted to what you put out. And if
That's
you're putting
true.
out like negativity, if you're putting out, things like that, you're going to attract things like that.
That's
So,
true. That's
but they
definitely
say misery loves company. Yeah.
that
So,
that right there. Yeah.
yeah. So just even though you're going through a lot, you have to. It's easier said than done. It really is because it
It's
takes
true.
practice. You
Right.
have to be able to smile and find, it's the little things that bring us all joy.
Right. It's true.
So it's the little things. It's when your baby's smiling, or, I mean, they have no care in the world. I still have recordings of my kids laughing when they were babies. And
Aw.
yeah, and sometimes when I feel extremely down, I will play those until I can laugh, like I cannot stop laughing because I just think it's the funniest thing ever.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, there's just so many little joys in life. And if you really focus on those, you can't be sad.
That's true
So,
for sure. But guys, we are at the end of the podcast. I know it's interesting. If y'all want Natalie back on, just tell me. We could put a topic. If you want to give us a topic, we could definitely talk about it because she needs to be on
we're
again.
gonna talk about anything.
Right, right. So if you guys want to see her again, just tell me, or probably on YouTube, or if I do a clip on TikTok, we could definitely have her on again. She's so interesting. She got so much to tell us, so much you could learn. And just keep your heads up, to be honest. Don't make the world and the life just make you be down. Everything happens in a season. Your season might be right now, it might be tomorrow. You might have passed it already. But if you need any help for any things, we have a resource packet listed up down below. Again, it's only for New York City. If Natalie want to give anything from her state, we could definitely send that information out to you guys also. And thank you for listening. And also follow us on all the social media platforms. I'm on TikTok and Instagram the most. And I don't do the Facebook. Like I said, Lorden does the Facebook. She's the one who does the Spanish podcast. She's also, if you speak Spanish, she'll be on the Spanish podcast also. So if you want to go check her out on that, you can. The Spanish podcast happens only once a month at the moment. So it's usually the fourth Wednesdays of every single month. So check her out on there too. Also, if you're looking for a job, we do have job postings all the time on Instagram. People send us stuff, or I look and try to find job postings or trainings and things like that. We want our best to make sure not only that we're giving us stuff by listening to us or giving us stories, we will make sure we can help you and your family if you need a job or any training or things like that. So please check us out on any social media platform if you like. Sorry, I'm making this blur background not work. I don't know. My hair is doing something. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being amazing. And thank you again for coming back to hear our voices. See you next time. Bye. No, I gotta edit that out. Oh my God. Hold on.